Not long after the Zardonian invasion of planet Earth began, an automated superluminal signal set out on a journey through space. Within it was the following message: Flagship attacked. Enemy on board. Defense crew captured. Chapter 11. The sun was up by the time the van pulled up outside Jerry McLaughlin's house, but there was still a light on in the living room. Jerry was visible from the road. He was asleep on a chair in front of his computer screen. Martina, Pa, and Sandra walked to the front door. Kevin followed, but at a distance. It took them several loud knocks to stir Jerry. He stood up, staggered to the door, and stared bleary-eyed at the group. "Oh, lads, what are you all doing at my house? What time is it?" Pa was first to talk. "I don't know the time, Jerry, but we need your help badly. We built that spaceship and flew it on board the alien mothership. But the thing's a fucking maze. Would you give us a hand finding the controls?" Martina nodded in agreement. "Yeah, sorry to be bothering you again, Jerry, but we'll never find them without your help." Jerry squinted to make out who else was in front of him, scratched his head, and stood back. "Come in, lads. I'm going to need a few minutes to wake up." Pa, Martina, and Sandra walked through the narrow hall and into the living room beside it. Kevin was the last to enter. Jerry waited at the door and stepped into his path. Kevin cursed under his breath. Jerry leaned forward silently until their foreheads were only inches apart. "Prick," he said. Kevin responded by venting the word gobshite and spitting into the hall. He waited for a response. Jerry racked his brain for a comeback. His sleep-deprived vocabulary was just not up to the job. Kevin eventually gave up waiting and barged past. "Prick," said Jerry a second time, but Kevin was already in the living room. Pa and Martina sat in the two armchairs while Sandra kept guard at the window and Kevin lurked in a corner near the door. Jerry walked in and sat down in front of his computer. "Right, what's all this about the spaceship?" Martina did her best to explain without Sandra interrupting. Jerry typed on his computer as she spoke. When she finished her story, he sat back from the keyboard. "Right, lads, it all seems fairly straightforward, but there's one thing I can't figure out. How did she have the space to bring back an alien if the van was full on the way up? Are you missing anyone?" Pa looked at the others and shrugged. "No, I don't think so, Jerry." He looked at the others again. "Oh, wait, shit, where's Fat?" Martina jumped out of her chair. "Jesus, we left him up on the ship. Fuck! And Billy has my stereo." Jerry shook his head slowly and dropped it into his hands. "Ah, lads." The room fell quiet. Jerry eventually broke the silence. "Right, we still have a chance to save humanity. And if we're going to take it, we'll need a proper plan this time. But first things first, we need to see if that creature you kidnapped is still alive." Kevin snorted and rolled his eyes. "Fuck the alien. What good's that going to do?" "Well, if it's alive, it just might be able to give us an idea what we're up against," replied Jerry sarcastically. "Good thinking, Jerry. Myself and Kev will drag it in here. Martina, can you try find something to wake it up with?" Pa and Kevin walked out into the hall. Martina followed them to the front door. "What the hell is going to wake up an alien, Pa?" "I don't know. Ask Sandra. Oh, or see if Jerry has any Dutch gold left. The future of life on Earth is depending on it." Jerry McLaughlin doesn't have neighbours. If he did, they would have a higher than average chance of seeing two men drag an unconscious extraterrestrial from out the back of a Ford Transit and into his sitting room. "I'll say one thing for that creature. It's nothing if not ugly." Jerry regarded the creature carefully and looked back at Pa. "I doubt it'd speak too highly of you either. Was it heavy?" "No, light for the size of it. And it seems to be still breathing." The creature was now in a crumpled heap next to a pile of circuit boards and a broken superstar heater. Sandra hadn't moved from her vigil by the window next to it and was still gazing up at the sky. Martina sat back down in one of the armchairs and began rolling a joint. Pa slouched into the other. Kevin was doing a good job of looking surly and an average job of lurking by the door. He carefully ignored Jerry, who was typing on his computer again. Lads, I'm just going to see if there's a diagram of that mothership on the internet. Let me know if the alien wakes up. The faded red glow of the alien's eyes flickered on and off, but there was no other sign of life. This reminds me of the time Trevor Staunton's head went massive. What the fuck are you on about, Pa? Muttered Kevin. Was he picked up in a spaceship with his two eyes glowing red? No, he wasn't. But his head was about the same size as that creature's is now, and he was passed out most of the time too. Martina put down the tobacco and glanced over to Pa. When was that? A few years ago, before you met him. His head just swelled up until he was too top-heavy to balance himself. He ended up out of work for months. He had to go for a cure to sort it. Up in the hospital? No, someone near Killarney had it. Kevin rolled his eyes. Ha! Some woman near Killarney. Are you saying Trevor went to the doctor and was told, sorry son, your head's just gone massive and there's nothing medicine can do. That'll be 20 quid. Pa continued, impervious to the sarcasm. Yeah, apparently it happens. Not very often though. I wonder would a cure work on the alien? No, interrupted Sandra. Gaia does not heal life from outside her system, she added with a tone of certainty. Yes! Merlin's online! Who's doing what, Jerry? Oh, the Merlin of Kronos is online. That lad wrote a book about Klingon spacecraft. Jerry, I haven't a fucking clue what any of that means. Do we know where the control room is now? We will shortly. I just need to fill the Merlin in on some details. Can you describe the part of the mothership you were in, Pa? We landed in a big room with a window, with little black robots moving around. And then we went into a big corridor, and there was a pile of empty rooms off it. And that's it, really. Is that fella's name really the Merlin of Kronos? No, it's Barry McNally, but he likes to be called the Merlin. Can you give me a bit more detail? What size was the window? Huge. Hey, this Merlin fella sounds like a bit of a float, Jerry. Gar, that ch. The noise was something like the noise the sea makes as it drags heavy boulders along the shore. It had come from the creature, whose red eyes were now glowing brightly. Jerry! Yeah? The alien's awake. The creature sat up and carefully scanned the room with its red eyes. Every other set of eyes in the room stared back, except Sandra's, who was still looking out of the window. What did it just say, lads? Pa stood up to get a closer look. I don't know, nothing I've ever heard before. Maybe it's hungry. We could fetch it something to eat. Kevin rolled his eyes for a second time. Oh, grand soul, Martina. Why don't we just make it a jam sandwich while its mates destroy the world? It was just a suggestion. Sandra kept her back to the room and spoke slowly. There is the third prophecy of Hababolus Clune. She paused, waited for a response, and then continued without one. He predicted that Earth would be invaded from space at the end of the 20th century. Jerry ignored Sandra's contribution and joined in the conversation. Good idea, Martina. That creature won't give away much information if it thinks we're going to kill it. Maybe it's thirsty. Oh, okay, I'll try it with a drink. Hybobolus who, Sandra? Hybobolus Clune. He was a 12th century monk who prophesied World War I and the first time travel journey. And something a lot like what's happening now. Martina pulled open the ring pull from a can of Dutch Gold, mimed drinking from it, and placed the can in front of the alien. A scaly hand shot forward, grabbed the can, and its contents disappeared into the alien's mouth. You're right, Jerry. That thing was thirsty. She opened a second can, and then a third. They were both downed instantly. Lad, stop giving beer to the alien. Jerry's eyes moved to the computer screen as he spoke. It's an awful waste. Garta-ch-ch. Sandra turned around to face her friends and continued. Hybobolus proved that the universe is made up of form and chaos, and that every time there is too much form, it reverts to chaos. You can be sure that those aliens travelled here in an abundance of form. Fuck this, we're wasting time. Kevin's less than impressive patience had reached its limit. First a hyperdrive that only speaks Japanese, and now an extraterrestrial that barks gobbledygook. Come on, let's just go back to the ship. We can at least do a hostage swap for Fat. And Billy, added Martina. Leave him there. That fella's a space cadet anyway. That's not for you to decide, Kev. Besides, I want my stereo back. Lads. Jerry looked up from the computer and over at Martina and Pa. Tell me again how you set the coordinates for the trip to the mothership. We didn't. Kev's friends did it. Where are they now? Kev, do you know where Paul and Tony went to? They went to get breakfast. What, in the middle of everything? I suppose so, Martina. They've been working all night trying to get things ready while you were off Dawson. Bit strange, don't you think? Bit strange going to get breakfast. And feeding beer to an alien in Jerry McLaughlin's living room is normal, is it, Martina? Relax, Kev. It just seemed odd that the pair of lads that are big into spaceships would suddenly wander off before it was even launched. Jerry sat up and clapped his hands. Got it. The Merlin of Kronos has just posted online, and the Merlin reckons any command centre has to be at the opposite end of the ship to the hangar. He says they wouldn't have the fuel and ammo near the centre of operations. Oh, okay. Makes sense. How do we get there then? What size were those corridors, Pa? Big. Big enough to fit your transit? I suppose. Good. We can drive there. But getting to the control room is only going to be half the battle. Key to this will be making sure we put the mothership out of action. Jerry turned away from the screen and looked around at everyone except the creature. His red eyes were now forlornly gazing at a fourth can of Dutch Gold. Jerry cleared his throat. Listen, I figured out how to save the world. Martina glanced over at Kevin before being the first to reply. That's the second time in the night I've heard someone say that. Pa nodded in agreement. Yeah, and the last time involved building a spaceship. Will this new plan be much different? I'm getting really tired. No, not really. I just need to add some code to the Mega Drive so we can run the input sensors into an infinite loop, clone the drive, and upload it to the alien system. The room went silent. Let me explain, continued Jerry. Their spaceship is big, so it'll have a crazy number of sensors. If we change the code to report when nothing is happening, then it'll overload their system. The room went silent again. Think of it like a smoke alarm that sounds whenever it doesn't sense smoke. Only there's several million of them going all at once. Nobody replied. We're going to make the mothership paranoid. Couldn't we just break stuff and be done with it? No, it's not that simple. That thing has brought an invasion force across millions of light years. It just won't break if you hit it a kick. You speak Japanese, Jerry? No, Martina. And what's that got to do with it? It's just, you said you were going to do something with the Mega Drive. It turns out it only speaks Japanese. Huh? Yep. Your Mega Drive communicates in Japanese. And you should have warned us, Jerry, said Kevin loudly. We were nearly all killed because of it. Did you not set the language at the start? No, we didn't. Are you supposed to? The room went silent for a fourth time. Jerry stood up and looked out the window towards the Ford Transit parked beside the road. Lads, leave the computer stuff to me. One thing is certain. The next time you land up on that ship, there'll be no messing. He glanced over at the alien. Here, big head, if you're listening. When we get there, you can tell your buddies that these humans won't be going quietly into the night. It was difficult to tell if the alien had heard Jerry. The creature looked to be lost in thought. There again, it could have been just wearing a normal expression for an alien. In any case, nobody in the room seemed to care. And that was it for the morning of July the 4th, 1996. A plan, a weapon, a means of delivery, and a van load of trouble for any Zardonians standing in their way.